we've added integers, so now let's subtract them. I have some more fun activities for you to play with, and this one is just showing the absolute value. Absolute value is basically just the distance from 0. So I can move this little blue point around, right? Right now you can see it's at -8. The black bar over here shows me the absolute value. Absolute value is just a distance, and distance is never negative, right? So always think when you see these bars around the number that just means how far is it from 0, and that distance is never going to be negative. So if I move this blue point to, let's say, -5, that's 5 away from 0. If I make it +5, that's also, well, as close to 5 as I can get it, right? That's also 5.02 away from 0, right? So the distance from 0, let's see. Okay, I can get it right on 6. This is +6, and it's 6 units from 0. Well, so is -6. That is also 6 units from 0. So they have the same distance to 0, which means they have the same absolute value. I'm going to go down to the bottom and click where it says Next, Subtracting Integers. And now we have subtraction on the number line. We looked at addition, so now let's look at subtraction. When you subtract integers, you're going to be using the additive inverse. So here's what that means. Subtraction is the same thing as adding the opposite. So right now my problem is -10 minus 10. That's the same thing as -10 plus -10. Okay, subtraction is adding the opposite. So if I add a -10 and a -10, you can see that here my first arrow is going 10 to the left, plus another -10, so that's another 10 to the left, which gives me an answer of -20. Let's try another one. Let me move these. So let's say, let's do some positive numbers, right? Let's start off a little easier. If I have +5 and a negative or -3, right? But if I were to rewrite this using additive inverses, that means 5, and instead of minus, since it's adding the opposite, I'm going to change the minus to a plus and the 3 to a -3. Now I know you're looking at this going, I would just do 5 minus 3. So would I, but I just want to show you that it still works. So 5 plus a -3 means I start on 0, right? Always start on 0. I move 5 to the right for the first number, and then I have to come back 3 because I'm adding a negative. And when we add a negative, that means you move to the left, right? Positive numbers, the arrow goes to the right. Negative numbers, the arrow goes to the left. All right, let's try another one. Let's say I've got a negative number for that second number. All right, so now I've got 5 minus -7. Well, minus is the same as adding the opposite, right? So now this looks much easier, right? And anytime you see two negatives together, I want your initial response to be to change it to a plus. Okay, anytime you see those two negatives. So like down here, you see these two negatives together, initially, like right away, change it to a plus. So we have a +5, so we start on 0 and go 5 to the right, and then we're adding 7, so we go 7 more to the right. Okay? All right, let's do one more. Let's do a negative number and a negative number. right? So now we've got -5 minus -7. Well, subtraction is just adding the opposite, right? So that means we have a -5 plus 7. So since our first number is -5, we start at 0 and go 5 to the left. Our second number is a +7, right? We're adding a +7, so we go 7 to the right. This is a positive. So we go 7 to the right and we land on 2. Okay, so this is the same thing that we did for addition, right? But the first step we're taking is to rewrite subtraction as addition. And then you just add the way that you already know how to add, which is first number starts at 0, second number starts at the tip of that arrow, right, where the first one left off. Okay, so then the next activity you can get to again from over here or from scrolling down and clicking on next at the bottom of the screen. It's sort of like a little quiz. So this is a pretty easy one to start off with, 4 minus 1. The first arrow is already in place for you. You just have to place the second arrow. So if I know that the first arrow starts at 0 and goes to 4 because it's +4, I know that the second arrow has to start where the first one left off. And because I am adding, right, let's write this as an addition problem. It would be 4 plus, and then this would become a -1, right? So if I'm going to add a negative number, I need my arrow to go the opposite direction. I need it to go to the left. So I can check this box right here, and then my arrow flips around and goes the other way, and I get 3. So, and again, you're probably like, yeah, it's 4 minus 1. Duh, it's 3. But just to show you that the additive inverse, works all the time, let's try a new one. Has a 0, so let's try another one. Okay, let's do this one. 4 minus -5. So let's rewrite it as an addition problem. So that's 4 plus, right? Change to addition. And we're going to add the opposite, which is a +5. So 4 minus a -5 is the same as 4 plus 5. So to do that, I'm just going to move. Actually, my dot is already in the right spot. Yay. But I do need a +5, so I'm going to have to switch my arrow around, and my answer is 9. Okay, and then one last thing is this integer subtraction activity. And the red dots turn green if you get the answer right. So this is really good practice, writing it as an addition problem and then checking your integer addition skills. So for this first problem, this -4 minus -5, if I rewrite that as an addition problem, actually I'll do it over here. So -4 minus -5 is what we start with. So I'm going to keep the first number, but subtraction is adding the opposite. So I'm going to add the opposite. -4 means 4 to the left. +5 means 5 to the right. So I'm going to land on 1. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to type in 1. And when I hit enter, the dot turns green. If it doesn't turn green, then you didn't answer it correctly. So for example, if I had put -1 instead, the dot would have stayed red. But since I got it right, the dot turned green. Let's try, I want to try one that's a little different. Let's try number 5. So actually that's the same thing as number 1. Let's try, okay, let's do number 7. So number 7, I've got -81 minus 14. So the numbers are a little bigger this time. So I'm going to write the problem over here, -81 minus 14. Remember, subtraction is what? Adding the opposite. So I'm going to add -14. -81 and -14, they're both negative. So that means that both of the arrows would go to the left. I would go to the left 81. I would go to the left another 14. Right? So I'd really be adding these numbers together. So let's see if I can do this in my head. 81 plus 10 would be 91. And then if I add 4 to that, I get 95. So I would get negative 95, because if I move 81 to the left, and then from there, another 14 to the left, I will have moved a total of 95 units to the left. So use these applets to strengthen your integer subtraction skills. Happy mathing!